This is Miss O'Neill, and today we're going to learn how to do the last style for your setup or your assembly for your paper project. This is one that you had to ask for special permission to do because it is a little bit different than some of the other ones. We really want to challenge you guys to try to think about how you can make your 3D paper actually have lots of depth to it instead of just being flat against the surface. This one does turn out pretty decently, but from time to time, it is a little bit, how should I say it? It can get kind of messy. So that's why you have to have special permission to do this one. However, it is still a very useful thing for you guys to know how to do. And I think the explanation of it really helps explain the importance of depth. So in our previous image that we looked at, we had a series of things, including the gate that was there, or not gate, the bridge. We had a little boat. We had a couple other little boats. And pretty much these were the things that we mostly cut out in our previous image. So just to remind you, this came from this. Now, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to probably look at both of them and then just kind of line things up exactly. So figuring out what should be in front of what and what should be behind what will be useful for me. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and cut mapboard. So there are big tabs of mapboard that should be sitting out for you to use, and you need a piece that is only about this big. So you get that simply by just using the scissors to cut a little strip and then actually cutting those individual pieces. So this is literally all you need is a bunch of these. So then first thing you're going to do is start with the very background. Okay, the very background. Before you do any gluing, make sure that you are going to actually get rid of all of these pencil marks. I left them there just to show you for craftsmanship purposes that this doesn't look very nice when you just leave them there. And then you're going to use our rubber cement. Rubber cement is a specialized type of glue that is nice because when it dries, it actually dries similar to the acrylic paint, meaning that it turns almost into a plastic. And instead of having just gloopy areas of glue that just never dry right, when this dries, we can actually peel off any excess without harming our paper. So that's why we use this kind of glue on paper. So what we're going to do first, as we have our background, before we just slap a bunch of glue on there, we're going to look at where our key points are on this bridge. So where are the key points that you're going to want to raise up in order to have depth? So for me, I see that the corners are going to be a good strong piece. So I'll probably want to make sure that I have at least one tab in each corner. Okay. And then because the corners are kind of farther apart, maybe one in the middle to keep it from sagging down. I'm going to also make sure it's kind of further up since I have like this area here. So I'm just scooting it to the edge of the table. I know you can't see this right now, just so that I can lift it up. I'll probably put that like right there so it helps lift it just that much more. And then I'll probably put some along this bridge line. So after I've gotten those kind of laid out the way that I want, making sure that none of them peek out when you're looking at them. So this one's a little bit big, so I'll probably have to use a smaller one there. Then I can actually glue these pieces in place. So notice I'm kind of using my next layer as my guide, trying to make sure none of them poke out in place. All right, and then I'm going to have to be very meticulous. So I'm going to really quick lift up the sheet of paper. Looks like only one of them really slid. Luckily, it was just a corner one. And then if it helps you, you can make a little line on your paper just really, really lightly, just to show like where those were. And then the next thing you'll do is actually glue those in place. And so you do that by opening up your rubber cement, getting as much of the excess glue off as possible. So you don't need a lot of glue to get something to stick. You just need like a tiny little drop. So that's what you'll do. You just touch it just a tiny little bit. And then you'll do that for all of them on both sides. Make sure it's firmly on the paper. And then you will put this back down. Make sure it's all in place. while it's still wet, you can shift some of these things. So if they're in the wrong spot, you can move them just a hair. But again, just be careful. And then you'll get that in place. So that's our first layer of depth. Now the next thing that we have is going to be another piece of land. So I'll use 2 more of these little dot things to go right under there for the next piece of land. I'm not going to use this right now because that is going to, well, I guess I can. So I'll want to make sure that like if I have one piece of the individual mat board under it, I'm going to want to line up those same areas so there's not any kind of sagging going on. And I'll line those both up so that that's there. Now my next piece was just above the corner, so I don't know that I can put one right there because it would be peeking out, but I could maybe put one slightly under that so that that way they're kind of in the same range still. So you can already see how these shadows are starting to form. Those shadows are our clue that there is depth created by the layering of these multiple planes. And then the last part I have are going to be my boats. So this was this was the last layer 5 in this case. And then the bridge was going to be layer 4. And then this little piece of land was layer 3. And now I've got all these boats. Okay, so these boats are actually all on different layers as well. So if I start off with my very, very back boat, I'm only going to need to put one little piece of that mat board behind it. So I'm going to snag a couple of these out so you can see what I mean, just for the purpose of the video. Okay. So if I have my boat, I'm only going to need to put like one little piece of mat board behind it to make it stick up for one layer. But my next boat, that would typically be right next to it, it's supposed to be a whole nother layer up. So in order to make them look like they're on 2 separate layers, I'm going to have to then put how many pieces of mat board behind it. If this was one layer, is one piece of mat board, how many is the next layer? 2 pieces of mat board. So what I'll do is I'll actually stack these up. So I'll glue these 2 pieces together first, and then I'll put them both down in one area, and then I'll put my boat on top of it. So that's creating even more depth, making it, you know, that it is that much closer to you. And the next thing I'm going to do is my final piece, and this final piece is the very first layer. So it is 3 layers above this individual ground. So how many pieces of mat board am I going to need for that? 3. The correct answer is 3 because it is 3 layers above this individual piece there. Okay, and I'll want to, again, just like the second one, stack all of those up on top of each other and glue individual pieces. Since this is so wide, I'll probably do multiple pieces, and then that'll create a good shadow behind it so that we can see the depth. All right, and these are our 2 videos for the 2 ways of assemblies that I'm presenting. There are 2 more examples of the assemblies, so please make sure that you're watching all 4 videos in this document. But thank you guys so much for watching. See you soon.